All right. Hey, good morning, YouTube. What's going on, folks? Welcome to Hump Day, or we will forever know this as the day after the YouTube apocalypse. If you didn't see or weren't caught up in it, YouTube was down for like an hour yesterday, and everybody panicked. Well, maybe not everybody, but it was funny. I guess YouTube worldwide went down last night. You couldn't watch videos. You couldn't start a video. You couldn't do anything. It was chaos. People didn't know what to do with themselves. It was funny because Wes S. had started a live stream and I was watching it on my phone. And I guess if you had started something, you could watch it just fine. You just couldn't refresh or start something new. And I was just watching along and people were saying they couldn't see him. And all along, everybody else was panicking outside in the world. But I guess all has been returned to normal if we're here today with me. See, we got you, Midwest Prepper here. What's going on? Good morning. Looks like you got a nice clear day so far. Castaway's with us. Hey, good morning. What's going on out there? You had the YouTube apocalypse down under too, right? They said it was worldwide outage. I'd hate for you to have missed out. You know, wouldn't want anybody to miss out on the fun and excitement. There's our weather snapshot. We got snow in Utah. So it is getting close to that time of year. It looks like Utah, Colorado, northern Arizona. Snow has arrived. And we're just having clear days out here. It's about 22 degrees outside, but it's definitely fall. Winter seems to be approaching quickly, like it skipped right out of fall. We didn't have many days of 40 degrees. It went right to 20s. We'll survive, though. We will survive. Yeah, people had to go outside, Midwest Prepper. Yeah, it was evening time, though, on the East Coast. What was it? It was like 9 o'clock on the East Coast. So, yeah, it was dark. Probably had people. Power outage in 94. People reported stars as UFOs. Are you serious? I did not hear about that. That's very humorous. That's scary that even back then. I didn't know you could see the stars from LA, though. I thought that, well, I guess when the power's out and all the lights are out. Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's true. Yeah, I haven't seen the stars in LA since like the 20s or something like that. Oh, Castaway's got a good point. We might have a population boom here in 9 months. Everybody had a quick hour. Didn't know what to do themselves. That'd be worldwide too. that goes against the powers that be's ultimate intentions. They don't want you to. They want to cull the people. They don't want to up the population. All right, so there's the weather. The rain continuing across the southeast. Wes was saying he was drying out. They needed the rain to go away down there. It doesn't look like it's going away. Still from the panhandle all the way through. They're getting plenty of rain down there. So he was talking about cotton crops and hay crops and everything else going to have issues if they don't get some dry time to get that stuff harvested. So hopefully they can take care of that. Hopefully. But whether you some snow up in Canada, see what I get my provinces confused, Quebec versus the other ones. But they're on the eastern part of Canada. Northern Michigan's got snow. So JJ McKay, if he joins us, might be kicking back by the fire after shoveling his porch off. All right, moving on. What else we got going on? Well, there's a lot going on. What I want to pull out. Let's check in on the market here. The market moderately recovered yesterday by 500 points, which is somewhat, but they're predicting a slowed down. Looks like we're going to continue sideways, which is what I figured. 26,000 is a tough ceiling when the interest rates are going to be set the way they are. So we'll keep an eye on that. But expected to decline that's minuscule amount relatively. So if you haven't heard, the invasion of the United States continues. There was earlier in the week or late last week, refugees coming up from, was it Nicaragua, El Salvador? It's from Honduras. A wave of refugees from Honduras left last week, and they have roved through Honduras and Guatemala. It says here up to 3,000 migrants, according to the organizers' estimates, which, how does a refugee wave have an organizer? Once again, it's like the one we had last year where they actually had some people behind the scenes orchestrating the whole thing to push an agenda, using these people as pawns and not looking out for their welfare, I guess you would say. But we had the same problem earlier last year with that train issue that was coming up from Central America. Looks like they're at it again. But there also was stories of them being joined by other groups and splitting off. And of course, the president chimed in on the whole issue. So they're in Guatemala currently dealing with this. So the organizer of the caravan was detained in Guatemala on Tuesday as the U.S. government threatened to withdraw aid from both countries and El Salvador if the flow of migrants north to the United States was not stopped. That's an interesting threat. But the Honduran president, Juan Hernandez, said in a public address on Tuesday evening, some Hondurans in the caravan had already returned home and the government was preparing to support them. He did not specify how many had turned back. Guatemalan police officers detained Bartolo Fuentes, a former Honduran lawmaker, from the middle of the large crowd that he and 3 other organizers had led from San Pedro Sula, Honduras, since Saturday. This followed President Trump and comments that they would halt the aid to Central American governments did not act. Right? Comments from the Guatemalan border people, we can't attend to people in mass. People are going through one by one. The police spokesman said in a radio interview, Guatemala's government said it did not have original figures on how many migrants from the caravan had already crossed the border. Of course not. How would they? There's lots of interesting timing behind this whole thing. There's people hypothesizing that this group can be used to influence the November elections, et cetera, making it a wedge issue for the November elections as well. On and on. So Trump was on Twitter Tuesday to express his annoyance with the caravan. Is he annoyed by everything? Which follows a similar event in May that ultimately led to hundreds of migrants either seeking asylum in the United States or remaining in Mexico. And that's what we were following back then. We've informed the president of Honduras that if the large caravan of people heading to the U.S. is not stopped and brought back to Honduras, no more money or aid will be given to Honduras effective immediately, wrote the president. So that's an issue being developed. So the strong words could encourage Honduras to move closer to China amid intensified efforts by Beijing to win recognition from Central American countries aligned with Taiwan. Oh goodness, we're going to lose Taiwan because Central America is falling apart. I can see how that would work. Honduras is one of a dwindling number of countries that still have formal diplomatic ties with Taiwan, an island nation of, we all know what Taiwan is. Hernandez said last month cuts in U.S. support for Central America would only hinder the country's ability to stem illegal immigration. We welcome China's growing diplomatic presence in the region as an opportunity. I think that's what you call hashtag winning on the Chinese side, at least. Between Venezuela, Central America, they're going to have a full footprint before too long. Not looking good. Pence told Central American countries last week that the U.S. was willing to help with economic development investment if they did more to tackle mass migration, corruption, and gang violence. It's going to be hard to clean up our own mess. The whole figure Central America problem goes back to what? 1880s. Corporations went in and mucked everything up. And we got our footprint in there and screwed everything up with different activities, installing dictators and mistreating the people and just trying to keep our hands out, trying to keep our hands clean. And it's all going to fall apart. Oh, goodness. Hey, Barry Woods with us. Good morning. How you doing? So we'll see how if this gets halted or if it develops into something larger, as there was talks of this group getting larger as people from the countries it was going through was joining and heading north. But the threat of withdrawing aid can be a powerful motivator depending on what China promises. But I wonder, still I'm waiting for the wave of Venezuelans. I guess that is a long trek, but you'd think there would be quite this wave of Venezuelans as well. But going off of that vibe there, this out of the zero hedge, talking about the Great Depression 2. They're sharing an article from Jeff Thomas via internationalman.com. So just hypothesizing, caught my eye talking about this. So I thought I'd check it out, see what his premise is. He starts off, whenever a movie has been a huge hit, the film industry tries to follow it up by doing a sequel. The sequel is almost invariably far more costly, as there's the anticipation by those who create it that it will be an even bigger blockbuster than the original. I think that's a little tongue-in-cheek there. The Great Depression of the 1930s is seen as most people to be the be-all and end-all of economic catastrophes, and there's good reason for that. Although the economic cycle has always existed, the period leading up to October 1929 was unusual, as those in the financial sector had become unusually creative. So continuing on, brokers encouraged people to buy into the stock market as heavily as they could. When the businesses began to level off, they encouraged people to buy on margin. The idea was that the buyer would only put up a fraction of the money for the purchase, and the broker would guarantee full payment to the seller as a condition of the agreement. Buying on leverage. The buyer would have to relinquish to the broker the right to sell his stock at any point that he wished, should he feel the need to do so to get himself off the hook in the event of a significant economic change. Both the buyer and broker were buying stocks with money neither one had, but the broker entered into the gamble so that he could charge commissions, which he would pay immediately. The buyer entered into the gamble as he had been promised by the broker that the stocks were going to the moon and that he'd become rich. So yeah, they're just comparing it with if you just think about the current situation. Banks got into the game as well, and so in the 1920s they loaned money to people so they could buy into the stock market more heavily. From that point forward, an investor who was trapped out and couldn't afford to buy more stock then bought on margin. That meant that only a tiny percentage of the money that passed hands actually existed. The great majority of investment funds only existed on paper. Sounds familiar, right? In the 1920s, fortunes were being made by those who ran banks and brokerage houses at a rate that greatly exceeded anything that ever existed. Glass-Steagall in 1999 was repealed. This was done under the advice of the Fed Chairman Greenspan, who was accepted readily by then President Bill Clinton, as he was assured that the repeal would mean a dramatic increase in investment, of course, which would assure a shining legacy for him as he left office. So Glass-Steagall, again, was passed after the 1920s disaster and then repealed in 1999. So the writer writing here again, his first reaction was about the repeal, with that over the ensuing years we'd see irrational investment in real estate made possible through bank loans. This would lead to a crash in real estate, followed by a crash in the stock market. He believed this debacle would be papered over by governments, eventually leading to a further crash, and the later crash would be of epic proportions, which leads us to today. But why should this be? Why should the second crash be so much greater? Does anybody need an explanation of why the next crash should be so much greater? I guess he's going to explain it if we don't know already. Well, the magnitude of the crash tends to be equal to the magnitude of the economic abnormality. Crash of 29 was greater than the previous crashes because bankers and brokers had found new ways to inflate the bubble. Yeah, they used fake money. Imagine how much fake money we have now. Likewise, they've become even more creative this time around and have inflated the bubble far beyond what existed in 1929. The level of debt far exceeds anything the world has ever seen. The 2008 crash was in effect a mini crash. No correction ever took place. Instead, it was papered over by massive increased debt, QE1, 2, 3, 4, Operation McTwist, et cetera, et cetera. Assuming that when the inevitable big crash did occur, the severity would be far beyond any other crash in history. There's no doubt. The sequel of the 1929 crash will be much like movie sequels. With movies, the producers invest more money into the sequel than they spent on the original, in the belief that if they just throw enough money at it, it will somehow be better and make them even more money than the original. Sequels always suck, right? Likewise, in economic events, the assumption is that if a great deal of money had been made in the build-up to the last major collapse, surely by creating even more debt this time around, the profit to be made will be far greater than before. And this has proven to be true. Financial institutions have entered into an era of profit that has historically been without equal. The original was a monster, and the sequel will prove to be an even bigger monster. Of course, there's a difference between movies and economic events. With movies, the producers cash in when the moviegoers pay their admissions fees. With economic crises, the producers make their fortunes in the lead up to the crash. The crash itself simply passes the bill for the disaster to the moviegoers. Interesting analogy. The question is, when will it happen? Unfortunately, although crises can be analyzed and predicted, the date is more uncertain. The decisive factor is the loss of confidence by the general public. That's the key. The loss of confidence is always been our key to when else all will come down. Faith is lost in the dollar. That's when it happens. When they withdraw their deposits from banks and sell their shares in the market, the bubble will suddenly pop. But again, we have a problem here because people are forced into the market. Think of all the mandatory IRAs, 401ks through people's employment that is tied up there without people, unless you're willing to take the 30% tax slap that you get from withdrawing early withdrawals. People are not going to take that money out. They're going to have to lose a lot of faith to take out that IRA 401k when you think of all the, billions of dollars, more than that. That the average Joe has tied up in the market through forcible withdrawals, not even voluntarily their own personal 401k they set up, just through their work and employment. A lot of this bubbles been propped up by those types of retirement accounts, quote unquote. And people are going to feel a lot of pain before they take out that withdrawal plus the 30% tax that gets taken out of that for early withdrawal penalties. That's how they keep us all sucked in. They're like, you have to pay taxes if you touch that money. It's not really yours, right? And so the actual screening for this particular epic could be a year from now, or it could be next week. So it might be premature to buy your box of popcorn, but when crashes come, they come suddenly and without warning. Since it's not possible to predict an exact date, those who don't wish to be casualties of the collapse may wish to prepare for it, to get free of debt, to liquidate assets that will be devalued in a crisis, to turn the proceeds into real money, and to relocate to a place that's likely to be less impacted by the monetary social crisis that will ensue. And we talk about that regularly on here, right? Assets that will be devalued in a crisis, you figure, are the least valuable ones. Land and real assets are the way to go for sure. We have been fooled into this leverage market system that rewards us for using nothing to steal basically from somebody else who becomes a victim. When you really think about it, the whole buy low, sell high, leave somebody else holding the bag when the music stops, somebody's not got a chair, works us against each other instead of real wealth building, creating false false wealth building with this whole market system, the way it's set up. So moving on to the potential of global collapse, this could precede it. Global beer supply is in jeopardy due to extreme drought and heat, a study warns. This will get people's attention. Nobody wants their beer supply interrupted. So this is zero hedge as well. This will raise everybody's concern if we get a shortage, and they're not, we talked about a while back, I think, about the quality of water, and the water issues could potentially lead to these types of shortages, but this is the first I had seen on this. So beer is the most popular alcoholic beverage in the world. So this is a zero hedge article, direct. Consumed in the world by volume and yields of its main ingredient, barley, decrease sharply in the event of extreme weather. A team of agricultural specialists and climate economists published a new study Monday in the Journal of Natural Plants, found the connection between extreme weather conditions such as drought or heat and the global consumption of beer. So where did they get this graphic from? So this is from that study. Can I blow this up? Doesn't look like it. All right. So there's some colors on the map graphics here. I don't even see a year attached. So this is figures average barley yields shocks during extreme event years. It doesn't allow me to click through that. Okay, can't blow that up. Researchers from the University of East Anglia warned that global beer supply could be in jeopardy due to extreme weather conditions affecting the production of barley, the main ingredient, obviously. Their computer models found that barley yields could plunge 3 to 17% across the world by the end of the century, which would trigger a 16% decline in global beer consumption and cause beer prices to inflate massively. That'll start wars right there, right? all would be concerned in that situation. We still coming through 5x5. Nobody's commenting out there. Barry checked in and everybody's silent. So it's got a graphic. Again, these graphics usually pop up, but barley consumption by country and globally under future climate change. Is that graph? Researchers said that declining yields could have a disproportionate impact on beer production, making a cheap cold beer unaffordable for the working class. Well, if we get rid of Budweiser, is it really a loss? If we could just imagine, just take their barley that they use for that worthless junk and put it to some real beverages, we might be all right. But that's not the way it's going to work. The small guy is going to get pushed out of the market, not the big guy. So the researchers, quote, made the assumption that farmers may be able to adapt to gradual changes, but it may be harder to adapt to more extreme events, said Stephen Davis, who is the study's lead author, who studies environmental impacts of global trade at the University of California, Irvine. To model extreme events, the team identified droughts and heat waves that might co-occur during growing seasons. The aim of the study is not to encourage people to drink more today. Drink up while you can. That's not the purpose. He was a co-author of the study and professor of climate change economics at the University of East Anglia, he told CNN. Instead, the team wanted to show how volatile weather patterns could impact the quality of life for the working class, because only they drink beer, right? That's kind of, I think more of the masses would be a better way to say it. If you say working class, you're obviously a socialist. You're trying to use class warfare, in my opinion. But anyway. In the event of a substantial barley crop failure, computer models show beer prices could double worldwide, and the U.S. would see a 20% collapse in beer consumption. Never happened. Well, maybe it would, but anyway. That would be equivalent to approximately 10 billion cans of beer. 10 billion cans of beer. So aluminum prices would collapse because there wouldn't be the demand for cans, right? Places like Ireland could fare worse. Beer price inflation would add an extra $21 per six-pack. That's pretty hefty inflation right there. Next figure is changes in beer consumption and price under increasingly severe drought. Yeah, they didn't make these graphs are usually blow up, but they can't click through that. So that's the changes in price and increasingly severe drought heat events. Moving on. Hey, 520, what's up? If you don't want this to happen, if you still want a few pints of beer, then the only way to do it is to mitigate climate change, said Guan. The study's co-author also said global beer shortages would have the most impact on the working class, thus triggering significant social and political consequences for governments. It's going to be funny. In 200 years, they're going to trace all the current problems to consumption of beer. There have been hypotheses posted out there about similar. Beer has driven world-changing events before. So moving on, Jess Newman, director of U.S. agronomy at AB InBev, which is currently testing new barley strains, says, "We have seen there are changes that are already happening. We are proactively investing in breeding and crop management to make sure our growers can thrive in the new world." Bart Watson is the chief economist for the Brewers Association, told Wall Street Journal that such extreme effects were unlikely considering current efforts to protect beer's ingredients. Not to underrate the challenges of climate change, but we anticipate that the barley system will continue to evolve and adapt. The study raises important questions about how the global food supply chain is going to adapt to climate change. Yeah, there's bigger issues than just barley, for sure. But this is kind of a micro shot at something that drives a lot of societies. I guess President Trump chimed in on climate change on 60 Minutes interview, suggested that humans might not cause it. Trump also said that climate change scientists have a political agenda, as the study above is certainly based on fear-mongering propaganda towards the working class. Otherwise, why would climate researchers examine beer? Most working class folks wash down their economy woes with cheap, cold beer. What happens if climate change causes price inflation? As explained above, a beer shortage would lead to societal upheavals. At least that's the hypothesis, I guess you'd say. I don't know that we would start a revolution based upon beer prices, but it could be lead edge of issues, I guess you would say. So that's a university study. Again, that's a zero hedge link in your description box. But they usually click through. There's no links to any of these quotes. Oh, here it is. There's one that doesn't look like it's highlighted. So that clicks through to a nature.com article at the very top of that article. So that's where a lot of the graphs, it looks like, are. Okay, there you go. Here's the barley production. And so all that's through, click through that one very top of that article. They usually have the ability to pull that up throughout, but it's right up here in the very top new study. So if you wanted to delve more deeply into that, especially you 520, I know you're going to be into that, right? But really, how would this affect so many different products on the fringe of an economy, I guess you would say? With any collapse, whether it's economic or like from a disaster scenario like this, it's the slowly changing climate is going to push out your what's the best way to put it, your niche items, the items that have a niche. They're not widespread enough to have a significant portion of the economy or the food production or anything else, but they're going to get pushed out first because it's not economically viable to maintain them, and then it whittles around the edges to slowly decrease the variety, I guess you'd say, of what's in the food supply or in the marketplace, to where you're only left with a few staples. Hey, Bug Out Bubba, good morning. Invest in mead immediately. That's a problem too. If we have honey mead, I mean, what's the other types of mead? But you figure if plants are having problems, that also means bees are having problems, which honey becomes a less viable resource as well. Barry says wheat, barley, rye, and oats are poor diet choices, but they have driven societies, Barry. They feed the masses. So moving on. So from one disaster potential to the next, Skynet has made its appearance in the British Parliament. So a robot debuts in UK Parliament, invites Maybot mockery. Shoot it in the head. So this is, there's several links to this on the Drudge as well, I believe. Still, is that where I got this originally? I don't know. It may have been buried by now. But there was a video on this as well of the thing talking, and it's disturbing. If you don't think it's disturbing, you're a part of the problem. A walking, talking robot appeared in Britain's Parliament for the first time on Tuesday, prompting Twitter users to seize the chance to heap more mockery on Theresa May, like she needs any more than she's already got. But yeah, pile on. The latest round of public amusement at the expense of the British Premier came during a committee hearing on artificial intelligence and the fourth industrial revolution. MPs on the Education Committee invited a robot named Pepper, as seen by the name placard in the picture. Hey, it's funny. The first robot's a white female, so of course it's that's not allowed, I thought. A computer tablet stuck to her chest to answer some basic questions. Asked whether humans would have a place in a brave new world where AI reigns supreme, Pepper responded in a reassuring voice. Robots will have an important role to play. This is a quote from the robot. Robots will have an important role to play, but we will always need the soft skills that are unique to humans to sense, make, and drive value from technology, the robot said. Robots only do what they're programmed to do, so. Oh, we can't. Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know if they have a link to the video. I did see a video. I thought there might be one in this article, but it doesn't look like it. Yeah, driving to our own demise. We saw the robot last week from Boston Dynamics climbing stairs and stuff, and it was doing backflips even. If people don't think Skynet's just around the corner, don't know if I can help you. But that was on the Drudge, but I don't see the links for it now. There's the Brexit issue still up, as we talked about yesterday. But yeah, these AI is getting out of control and nobody cares. First guy that puts a 12 gauge slug through one's going to get put in prison for destruction of property, probably, but should be hailed as a hero. You know what I'm saying? First person to go full conspiracy and try to be John Connor is going to be put in jail just like Sarah Connor. Okay, so yeah, I guess it's not out there, but you can search it, robot in UK Parliament, and you'll probably come up with other videos and links. So we covered beer supply, Great Depression hypothesis, Honduras, Guatemala refugees. Close it out with the economic future. This is out of the UK Independent. But we've talked about mining in space previously. That could be just a new frontier for sure. But vast cosmic explosions could be flinging gold and platinum across the universe. NASA scientists reveal here in the quote, or in the title. That'll get people out there doing some Lewis and Clark stuff across space, right? Old Elon Musk isn't quite so crazy after all. People are going to realize when there's this much. So let's see what this video says here before we close out. I guess it's nothing but a dramatic piece without any actual commentary behind it. So going on down. So vast explosions throwing out gold, platinum, and many of the world's most precious elements could be happening throughout the universe. NASA scientists have spotted what they think are immense explosions caused by neutron stars colliding into each other in distant space. When the catastrophic event happened, it sent an intense jet of high energy particles through space that made their way past the scientists who spotted them using NASA's array of space telescopes. Interesting. Looking at the data from the telescopes could shed more light on some of the most spectacular and intense collisions found in space. So if you could just put a net, quote unquote, out there in space, you could just start catching gold and platinum, right? As it's being flung from the furthest stars. Space mining, it's coming. Flings out huge quantities of important elements like silver, gold, platinum, and uranium. I don't know that we need more uranium, but okay. The announcement comes after scientists announced last October that they had seen the first explosion of this kind. They spotted super dense stars smashing into each other, wobbling the space-time of the universe and allowing them to be picked up by gravitational wave detectors. Interesting. At the time, that discovery was hailed as a new chapter in astrophysics and an unexpected discovery. It allowed scientists to understand the spectacular explosions of neutron stars, as well as answering questions about where gold comes from. Now scientists have found that they think might be related of what they think might be a related event known as, they name an event, this is the name of the event, GRB 150101b. That sounds very scientific, doesn't it? And that suggests such spectacular explosions could be far more common than we realized. The similarities between the two events have led researchers to suggest they might, in fact, be related. Oh, here's another event name, GW170817. Goodness. They couldn't get a little bit more creative. I guess it's all about documentation. So they describe the similar events and similarities. They close out. Surely it's only a matter of time before another event like, we'll just call it 817, will provide both gravitational wave data and electromagnetic imagery. If the next such observation reveals a merger between a neutron star and a black hole, that could be truly groundbreaking. That's the co-author Alexander Kutriev, an associate research scientist in the UMD Department of Astronomy, with a joint appointment at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. The latest observations give us renewed hope that we shall see such an event before too long. All right. Telling you, mine in space, that's where the action's at. Just go out there. If this hypothesis holds true that this stuff's just flying through the universe, you just got to put the right type of net out there, right? And just start catching gold and platinum or whatever else falls into it. Is it an electric net? Is it a physical? Obviously, probably wouldn't be a physical net. Some sort of magnetic net that swoops up gold and stuff. I don't know. But just looking on the outer edge of the next frontier, right? So that's kind of it for today, folks. Anybody got any other pressing issues on their end of the scale? Anybody got any on the ground reports in Utah or Colorado, how much snow they're getting? Find it interesting. I was doing a search for news stories today, and there's 2 British articles out today on the Yellowstone volcano eruption, both out of the UK. I find it interesting that the British are talking more about Yellowstone than we do. But the title of one is Yellowstone eruption would be disaster for humanity. And the other one is Yellowstone volcanic eruption. How big would another Yellowstone? What's the full title? But the British are writing about, I guess they're concerned that it might wipe them out as well. Maybe they'll try to annex the U.S. to prevent its eruption. They'll probably try to tie the Yellowstone event to climate change and try to shut down the U.S. because we're causing the climate change that's going to make Yellowstone erupt or something off the wall like that. Somebody could sell it. They'd probably try to push that, I'm sure. So lots of rain through the southeast. Hey, Barry, Barry says total CGI. We can't even move in space. Well, right, where we use gravitational pull from all the different bodies to get anything from anywhere. But yeah, we couldn't move outside the solar system at this time for sure. Not effectively, I guess you'd say. But again, it's got to. How can we put a net out there, Barry? I don't know. Do you think they've stopped Elon, Midwest Prepper? I don't think Elon's been stopped. He may have been slowed down a little bit, but I think he's still going. I think space is his ultimate goal in his many endeavors. He's just using it all to fund his space exploration exploits, desires, whatever you want to call it. That's his ultimate is to get his space conquest done. However, whatever it is, whether it's Mars or space colony or whatever he's thinking, I think that's his ultimate agenda. See what the market opened at as they were predicting down. It's down 174, so down 200 at the open. So the market's piddling along as these mortgage rates can't get themselves sorted out. There's an interesting EU Commission to reject Italian 2019 budget plan as Italy is the next economic disaster waiting to happen. That tells you how bad things are when the central EU government tells a country how they're going to do their budget. Oh, goodness. All right, folks, we'll get out of here. You guys have a good week. If you have anything remaining, get through your hump day effectively. And we'll see you back here on Friday, if not before, elsewhere in the YouTube world, if the YouTube world doesn't fall apart between now and then, like it did yesterday, sending everybody into a panic. So y'all be good. We'll talk to y'all later. Live free.